Most leaders don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they inherit an impossible standard and collapse under the weight of comparison. Imagine stepping into leadership immediately after the greatest figure your people have ever known. A man who spoke with God face to face. A man who parted seas, confronted empires, and shaped history. Now imagine being told, without warning, it's your turn. That was Joshua's reality. Moses was gone. The mission was unfinished. And an entire nation was watching to see whether Joshua would rise or disappear in the shadow of a legend. What followed didn't just shape Israel's future. It revealed a leadership blueprint that still works today, in boardrooms, churches, classrooms, and moments of quiet personal responsibility. This isn't about religion. It's about what happens when pressure meets preparation, when fear meets obedience, and when a successor refuses to live as a shadow. Joshua didn't ask for leadership. He was formed for it. For 40 years, he served Moses without recognition. He watched. He listened. He obeyed. While others complained, Joshua stayed faithful. While others chased influence, he stayed available. Leadership didn't come to him because he demanded it. It came because he had proven trustworthy when no one was watching. Great leaders are rarely forged in public. They are shaped in obscurity, where the work is repetitive, the praise is absent, and ego has no room to breathe. Joshua carried Moses' sandals long before he carried Moses' responsibility. And that unseen faithfulness became the foundation of everything that followed. But preparation doesn't eliminate fear. When Joshua finally stepped into leadership, God didn't tell him to be brilliant or charismatic. He told him to be strong and courageous, and he said it repeatedly. That repetition wasn't poetic. It was revealing. Joshua was afraid. He had watched an entire generation fail. He had seen the cost of disobedience. He knew the weight of leadership came without guarantees. Courage, in Joshua's life, wasn't the absence of fear. It was obedience in the presence of it. He didn't wait to feel ready. He moved because obedience mattered more than comfort. Modern leaders chase confidence. Joshua shows us something deeper. Faithful action when confidence hasn't arrived yet. That courage was tested immediately. The Jordan River stood between Israel and the future. Flooded and impassable. No bridges. No boats. No alternative route. Any reasonable leader would have waited. Joshua didn't. He instructed the priests to step into the water first. Only after their feet touched the river did it stop flowing. Leadership often demands movement before clarity. It requires stepping forward without certainty, trusting that the ground will appear once obedience begins. Joshua didn't lead from a distance. He led from the front. And that kind of visible faith builds trust faster than any speech ever could. On the other side of the river stood Jericho, fortified, intimidating, untouchable by conventional standards. Military logic called for siege warfare. God called for silence, marching and shouting. It made no sense. It looked foolish. And Joshua followed the instruction exactly as given. Great leaders aren't enslaved to conventional wisdom. They recognize that the right strategy isn't always the obvious one. Joshua wasn't managing appearances. He was managing obedience. And when the walls fell, it became clear that breakthrough doesn't always come from brilliance, but from trust in the process you didn't design. But success has a dangerous aftertaste. After Jericho, Israel attacked the small city of Ai and failed badly. Soldiers died. Confidence collapsed. Joshua didn't deflect blame. He fell to the ground and asked why. Strong leaders don't deny failure. They investigate it. Joshua discovered compromise within the camp and addressed it decisively. Unchecked dysfunction, he understood, poisons entire systems. Avoiding confrontation feels kind in the moment, but it quietly destroys trust and momentum. Accountability isn't cruelty. It's protection for the mission and the people. Afterward, Joshua gathered the nation and recentered them. He rebuilt the altar. He read the law publicly, every word. Not because it was efficient, but because it was necessary. Leadership requires constant realignment. Values drift when they aren't reinforced. Vision fades when it isn't repeated. Joshua didn't assume understanding, he ensured it. If you lead anything at all, the question matters. When was the last time you reminded people why you exist? Later came a costly mistake. The Gibeonites deceived Joshua into forming a treaty. He failed to seek counsel. The error was undeniable. But when exposed, Joshua honored the agreement anyway. Integrity reveals itself after mistakes. It's easy to keep your word when it benefits you. It's harder when it costs you. Joshua chose credibility over convenience. And in doing so, he taught a lesson leaders still struggle to learn. Your word matters most when breaking it would be easier. That commitment was tested almost immediately. When enemy kings attacked the Gibeonites, Joshua marched all night to defend them. No hesitation. No debate. Protection. Once promised, demanded action. In the middle of that battle, Joshua prayed one of the boldest prayers in Scripture, for the sun to stand still. And it did. Desperation produces clarity. Joshua wasn't posturing. He needed time, and he asked for it. Great leaders aren't afraid to admit dependence when the situation demands it. The most extraordinary breakthroughs often come when leaders stop pretending they can do it alone. What followed was not dramatic, but it was decisive. Year after year, battle after battle, Joshua endured. Leadership became routine. Progress became slow. Recognition faded. This is where many leaders fail, not in crisis, but in consistency. Joshua kept going. Leadership, he understood, isn't a sprint. It's showing up long after the excitement has worn off. The leaders who last are the ones who remain faithful on ordinary days, when nothing feels heroic. In the midst of this long campaign, Joshua did something remarkable. He distributed land before the conquest was complete. People received inheritance while enemies still occupied parts of it. That wasn't premature. It was visionary. He gave people a future worth fighting for. Vision doesn't just describe where you're going. It helps people see themselves there now. Ownership changes effort. Stakeholders fight differently than spectators. But vision alone isn't enough. Joshua confronted tribes who delayed taking possession. He challenged their comfort. He refused to let them settle into partial obedience. Great leaders don't just inspire, they provoke growth. They hold people accountable to what they're capable of becoming, not just what they're willing to do. As Joshua aged, something else became clear. He didn't cling to power. He built systems, cities of refuge, leadership structures, sustainable processes. Legacy isn't about being remembered. It's about what survives you. Leaders obsessed with themselves build monuments. Leaders obsessed with mission build frameworks that outlive them. Joshua prepared for a future that wouldn't include him. And that's why it worked. In his final address, Joshua gathered the nation and did something unexpected. He gave them a choice. Choose today whom you will serve. No manipulation. No coercion. No fear tactics. Because forced loyalty dies when leadership leaves. Joshua wanted people who chose conviction for themselves. The highest form of leadership is raising people who no longer need you to make the right decision. Joshua didn't build an empire. He built a people. He didn't chase recognition. He pursued faithfulness. And when he died, the record says something rare. Israel remained faithful even after he was gone. That isn't accident. That is leadership that lasts. The question isn't whether Joshua was perfect. He wasn't. The question is whether he was faithful. And more importantly, what kind of leader are you becoming?